This is the Mexican plum. It is a Prunus species that you will find in the northern part of Mexico and also in some of the central United States. It is also adorable. So the Prunus genus is where we have plums, cherries, apricots, peaches, all that stuff. But there are a ton of other species that you don't really hear about all that much, including the Mexican plum. I've had a lot of Prunus species in the past. I've had the purple leaf plum, I've had the choke cherry, I've had the native plum, and a whole bunch of other ones. And the thing with these is that, they are a different species, okay? So they are not regular plums. They can sometimes have flavors that are a little bit more like a cherry, or a little bit more like an apricot, or maybe something totally unique. You can see a lot of variation because this is not just a variety of plum, this is a different species that is likened to a plum. The Mexican plum is something that you are not going to find at a grocery store. This is something that people grow as a landscaping sort of thing, or it's something people forage. And the reason why you're not going to find this at a grocery store is not necessarily because it's going to taste bad, but it's not super practical. I mean, look at it. It's really small. So some of these Prunus species can actually have a really, really nice taste if you're willing to put in the effort. So did I put in that effort? Did I go and forage this in the central states of the United States or in northern Mexico? No, this was sent to me in the mail by John. And John found this growing in the parking lot at a hardware store. So John, thank you. I say this a lot, but it's always worth repeating, is that ironically, some of the most difficult fruits for me to find in my hunt to try all the fruit in the world is stuff that's like in my own backyard, right here in the US. It's just because these are not commercially available, you gotta know where they are, or you gotta go and find them yourself. So I'm gonna eat it in a second, but let's first take a quick look at it. At a glance, it looks like a cherry, but when you get a closer look, you can see something wrong about it. Like the coloring on it is like a little bit dusty, the way some plums could be, and also the bottom of it is very flat, like some plums are. So yeah, it looks cherry-like definitely in size, but also has some plum characteristics to it as well. But what about the flavor? Ooh. That's really good. I was expecting it to taste like a plum or maybe like a cherry, just from how it looks. But the flavor of that is actually more like a peach. It's somewhere between a plum and a peach. You get that sweet, mellow, honey-ish flavor that you get from a plum, but also that, peachy flavor that you get from a peach. It's also quite tart. The tartness on that is more than a plum or a typical peach. I would put that at like a 5 on tartness, around the tartness of like an orange. It's not too crazy though, but definitely more than a peach or a plum. Sweetness on it is also pretty high. It's not as high as plums usually are, or peaches usually are, but it's still pretty high. I'd put that at like a 6. It's sweeter than your typical apple, but it's not as sweet as your typical plum. The seed on this is, I'd say that looks more like a cherry pit than a plum seed. Plum seeds are a little bit more almond shaped. This one is a little rounder, the way that a cherry seed would be, but maybe a little bit between the two. This has a really good flavor to it, and I can see just eating them out of hand like you would with a cherry, but because they are a little bit stronger than your typical cherry, I think that this would actually work really well as a jam. So, John was kind enough to send me a big bag of these, so let's do it. Let's make a quick jam. I would love the day that I could use this food mill for something, but it always just seems to be a bad idea, including for this, because it worked, but there's a lot of pulp in there that didn't go through, and I'm afraid to overdo it because what I'm noticing is that these pits are breaking open. So yeah, that's not good, because the inside of plum pits, like this little kernel here, that's poison. You don't want to eat that. So if this gets mushed up into the pulp and then goes into the jam, you can end up getting sick. So I'm going to have to get rid of this and do something a little bit more light-handed, and I'm going to use a strainer. That is delicious. That's really, really good. Different though. When it was fresh, it had a flavor that's kind of like a cross between plum and peach. I'm getting less of the peach taste and more of a plum and cherry flavor, which is interesting. There's actually like a little hint of bitterness to it too. Not a lot, but like a little bit. And it's nice. It's still very sour. I didn't need to add any lemon to that. You know, if I were to make like a regular plum jam, I would definitely need some sort of sourness. This has enough of a flavor to it, enough of a tartness to it where you don't need that. And you know, come to think of it, it's not just like cherry, it's like choke cherry, which I reviewed a long time ago, but I'm kind of having this sense memory of it. Because choke cherry tasted like a candy version of cherry, like a cherry flavored pixie stick. The consistency on this is also quite good. It firmed up pretty well. There must be a lot of pectin inside these. The most interesting thing to me is that this is not a plum, it is not a cherry, it is not a peach, it is its own species. You know, even though it's labeled plum, because it's a different species, you get different notes to it. You know, it's not just black and white. This is its own fruit, and you can taste that. You know, fresh, it tastes like a plum and a peach. Cooked into a jam, it tastes more like a choke cherry and a plum. Who would have thought? But either way, it is really tasty, and I think that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks again to John for sending this to me, and I will see you all next time. I would like to give a very big shout out to Smarter Every Day, Wootbot, JMac, and Bill T. They are mega patrons over on Patreon.com. This is how I managed to keep this channel going, so it is a huge help. And to anyone watching who is interested in supporting the channel and in return getting some really cool rewards like early access to videos, exclusive content that you can only see if you are a member, and there's even a level where I will send you stuff in the mail, you gotta check it out. So just click the link in the description below to learn more.